We didn't mean to break anything. That's the strange part. Nothing about it looked important. The box was small, gray, and quiet, sitting behind the school field like it had been forgotten years ago. There was a sign on it, white with red letters, clear enough that even from a distance you could read it. Do not touch. Not danger. Not electric. Just those 3 words? He stepped closer first. See? He said. No reason. I stayed where I was, grass brushing my ankles, watching him like I was waiting for the world to correct him. He had that calm way of talking, the kind that made guesses sound like facts. When he said something probably wasn't dangerous, it stopped feeling dangerous. He tapped the metal box once with his finger. A light clink. Nothing happened. He looked back at me, not smiling, just confirming. Then he tapped it again, a little harder this time. Same sound, same silence. He gave a small shrug like the universe had just agreed with him. I stepped closer. Up close, the box looked even less impressive. The paint was chipped near the edges. Rust dotted the screws. One corner was bent inward, as if someone had bumped into it years ago and nobody had cared enough to fix it. It didn't look powerful. It looked tired. I pointed at the sign. Why would they write that? He leaned in, read it again, then said simply, because people touch stuff. That answer felt complete, simple, logical. I nodded before I even realized I had agreed. Nothing. He pressed his finger lightly against the metal. He pressed harder. Still nothing. Fine. Then he knocked with his knuckles. The sound came back hollow, like the box had a secret inside it. His eyebrows lifted slightly. That expression always meant the same thing. He thought he had found something interesting. Bet it opens, he said. Not like a dare, more like a thought that had slipped out. My chest tightened a little. Not fear, exactly, something thinner than fear. The feeling you get right before you decide whether you're going to be careful or curious. The air felt warmer near the fence. Somewhere behind us a whistle blew from the field, sharp and distant. Nobody was looking our way. He slid his fingers under the small metal lid and held them there for a moment, listening. What? I whispered. He tilted his head slightly. Hear that? I held my breath. At first, nothing. Just wind moving through dry grass. Then very faintly something else. A soft ticking sound like a watch buried under cloth. It was coming from inside the box. My stomach shifted. That's new, I said. He didn't answer right away. His fingers stayed hooked under the lid, but he didn't lift it. For a moment he just stood there, eyes narrowed a little, thinking. I could tell he was deciding something. Not fast. He never decided fast when something actually mattered. His thumb tapped once against the metal like he was still arguing with himself. The ticking went on. Quiet, even, patient. We should probably not, I said. He nodded once, but his fingers stayed where they were, thumb still resting against the edge. The metal felt warm now, or maybe that was just my hand. The sign hung right above his wrist, the red letters almost touching his skin. Do not touch. The ticking continued. He swallowed. Then, slowly, he lifted the lid. We held the lid open just a little. Inside, a small panel of wires and blinking lights glowed faintly. The soft ticking came from a tiny motor, turning slowly. He froze. "It's something moving," I whispered. His fingers hovered over the edge. The metal box now seemed alive, humming quietly. We held our breath, staring at the lights. Then we heard its footsteps, heavy, coming closer. A man's voice called from behind the fence. "Hey, what are you doing there?" We spun around. A man in a hard hat and orange vest hurried over. His expression was sharp, but not angry, just alert. He stopped a few steps away, hands on his hips. "This is a construction device," he said, pointing to the wires and blinking lights. "Temporary power for the new field." "It's live, dangerous." We both stared at the small gray box. The words "do not touch" suddenly made perfect sense. I felt my stomach tighten. He dropped the lid quickly. It clicked shut. The man stepped closer and knelt, checking the connections. "Kids, this thing's live," he said, voice lower now. "You could have gotten hurt bad." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I keep telling them to lock these better." We shuffled our feet in the grass. I tried to explain. We didn't mean to. He held up a hand, gentle. "I know. Curiosity gets the better of us sometimes." He looked at us, tired but not mad. "But rules exist for a reason. You two are lucky today?" We nodded, silence stretching between us. He inspected the box for a moment, then snapped the lid shut and clicked it into place. "No more poking," he added, a small smile breaking through. "Stay safe, all right?" We both nodded again. He stood up, brushing dust from his vest, then walked toward the next panel along the fence. We watched him go, feeling a mix of relief and embarrassment. The box looked smaller now, less mysterious, but the memory of its hum stayed with us. Our hearts still beat fast. We turned back toward the grass. The sign above the box seemed bigger now. We didn't need to read it again. We understood. The air smelled like cut grass and warm metal. Our legs felt tired, but our minds buzzed with curiosity and caution. We walked slowly, matching each other's pace. Neither of us spoke much. The box stayed behind us, quiet again. We had touched it. We had seen its warning, and the feeling stayed with us. Our small adventure was over, but the feeling of excitement mixed with fear lingered. We looked at each other and nodded. Next time we would explore something safer. The field looked the same. But we didn't.